Thank you, Chairman Holdcroft and members of the General Affairs Committee. I'm Senator Megan Hunt, MEGANHUNT, and I'm here to present LB33, a bill that would remove non-alcoholic beer from regulation under the Nebraska Liquor Control Act. The state of Nebraska categorizes beer by its ingredients rather than alcohol content, labeling non-alcoholic beer as, quote, near beer, unquote, and requiring that it be subject to the state's three-tier system. That is, any business wishing to sell non-alcoholic beer must purchase it through a distributor. They cannot buy it directly from the companies who produce the product, often small businesses themselves, which severely limits the products distributors are willing to carry, and thus those businesses that are wishing to offer non-alcoholic options can access and sell it to customers. LB33 changes the current statutory definition of near beer, which is beer containing less than 0.5% of alcohol by volume, to be called non-alcoholic beer and exempts non-alcoholic beer from the Act. The Federal Food and Drug Administration defines non-alcoholic beer as a malt beverage that contains less than 0.5% alcohol by volume, and the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau defines beer as a fermented beverage containing 0.5% alcohol by volume or more for tax treatment. LB33 simply recognizes that same federal standard in Nebraska statute. Just across the border in Iowa, they also define non-alcoholic beer as less than 0.5% alcohol by volume, just as proposed in this bill. Nebraska is one of only 7 states that regulate non-alcoholic beer the same as regular beer. I brought this bill at the request of Dry Spokes, a small business founded by 2 amazing women who I got to know because they were actually my neighbors across the hall from me in my apartment building that I lived in when I got elected. And they have a son who's about the same age as my kid, and so we kind of got to know each other, and I got to see them grow their business over the years and now have identified a problem that's preventing them from growing their business further. Their business is, as far as I know, the only non-alcoholic bar in the state, and perhaps the first to really come across this issue with the outdated definition in our statute, as they seek to provide a bar experience for non-drinkers, and they don't sell or carry or serve any alcohol at all. Because of the way the Act currently defines near beer, Dry Spokes, the only non-alcoholic bar in the state, is required to obtain a liquor license solely for non-alcoholic beer. This process is costly and time-consuming for them, and there could be other people who are going through the same thing in Nebraska who I haven't heard from, and there will surely be more in the future as more and more adults are choosing to reduce their alcohol use or consumption or abstain altogether. I've been a retailer in my district for about 20 years, and we sell, particularly around the holidays, non-alcoholic cocktails, and these are pre-made, they're pre-mixed. I'm not like bartending for people and mixing them up. You just buy them out of the cooler. There's Negronis, there's Manhattans, there's types of vodka, there's non-alcoholic wine, and a lot of them do taste really close to the real thing, because I do drink alcohol, and I like Negronis, and I think they're called phony Negronis. I think they taste great too. So a business like mine can sell products like that, and they sell products like that, but to sell non-alcoholic beer, you have to go through the liquor license process. So I also think that that's creating kind of an unfair standard for businesses and retailers as well. Actually when Dry Spokes started, they actually did a couple pop-ups in my shop, and so I got to know them through that too. And now that they have their own brick and mortar space and an actual bar where they can serve people every day, I think we all just want to kind of help them grow and help other businesses that want to get into the same space. So I'm really glad they brought this to my attention. And I'm sorry that they have to kind of serve as the test case here in Nebraska. But I also think that as a state in Nebraska, we should do more to destigmatize healthy, safe choices and access to non-alcoholic alternatives. I think that if something isn't alcohol, according to the federal definition, then we shouldn't regulate it like alcohol. Our current system that requires retailers to go through a distributor is gatekeeping. I think it's a level of overreach at this point, and it's driving out potential businesses and consumers who want to have these options when they go out. Dry Spokes has also shared with me that current statute is unnecessarily restrictive on where they're allowed to sell non-alcoholic beer. They'll probably speak to this in more detail when they come up here, but their business originated by offering canned non-alcoholic cocktails like I sell at my store and other drinks for athletes at bike races, at the finish line and other athletic events like that. And under current Act requirements, in order to offer non-alcoholic beers along with their other selections, they would have to pay for multiple fees and licenses and permits that are prohibited for a small business. I expect today that we might hear some opposition that's really well intended, and I totally get where they're coming from about safety concerns. And what I will say is that there are 43 other states that regulate non-alcoholic beer the same way that this bill is proposing to do. And I would say that this bill actually provides for more safety for people in Nebraska, because the more people have access to a non-alcoholic alternative when they go out, the less likely they are to overdo it. Maybe they're at a business event or a party and they know they're going to have to drive in a couple of hours. Maybe if there were more non-alcoholic alternatives and they could still feel like they were having a fun, festive drink, they would feel empowered to make better choices. The World Health Organization, backed by the U.S. Surgeon General, also recently released a study stating that there is no safe level of alcohol consumption that's safe for our health, and that alcohol is a high-risk carcinogen. And we've seen in this country that moderation is on the rise, even before the Surgeon General issued this warning. And this is just an article that I pulled today from a study released last week that says nearly half of Americans, 49%, that's about half, say they plan to drink less in 2025. That's up from 41% in 2024, up from 39% in 2023. And the highest group that's saying this is adults 18 to 28. So there is a demand for this kind of thing. There's a lot of studies that show that people are drinking less alcohol. There's a lot of studies, like one published in JAMA Pediatrics, that found no evidence that zero-proof beverages have led kids to drink more. I know this is a concern that some people have, that if non-alcoholic cocktails or beverages are available to kids, that it will lead them into a culture of drinking or something like that. But according to a 2023 research publication, the average age of their first drink for adolescents aged 12 to 17 has decreased, and reports of drinking at all has decreased. So, my goal here is to remove the unnecessary barriers to business, to have non-alcoholic options available in more places, to align Nebraska statute with federal law that defines non-alcoholic beer as a beverage with less than 0.5% alcohol by volume. In the fiscal note, the Liquor Control Commission stated that there are currently 100 near beers registered, and they estimate 20 new ones per year. And that 100 is just those that are registered under the current onerous system. So that points to a growing number of options that are being unnecessarily regulated. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Senator Hunt, as you come back, we had 25 proponents, 2 opponents, and none in the neutral.
Thank you, Chairman Holdcroft, and thanks for everybody who came to participate in this hearing today. I also want to say hi to Senator Lowe, who introduced a bill like this in the past as well on this committee. I have a couple thoughts in reaction to some conversations in the hearing today, and then I'm happy to take any other questions. Senator Klaus asked a hypothetical kind of, where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the line with the amount of alcohol and things? I would propose what this bill proposes, which is, why don't we draw the line at non-alcoholic? If it's a non-alcoholic beer, if it's a non-alcoholic wine, spirit, whatever, let's not regulate like alcohol, just as 47 other states do, and just as the federal government has defined alcoholic and non-alcoholic. That, to me, would be the line. And I can also share some hypotheticals. I didn't do this in my opening because it's hypotheticals, and, I would ask you to just kind of think about common sense when you're thinking about how this could impact kids and youth. And Mr. Roop talked about that a little bit. The gentleman from Athletic Brewing talked about that a little bit. But non-alcoholic beer is expensive. It is not like buying a soda. And when I was a kid, and I have a teenager now, and they're not out using their money to buy a lot of expensive treats, honestly, and I wasn't either at the time when I was that age. Kids can already buy things like phony Negronis, like non-alcoholic wine. They can already go to a store and buy non-alcoholic cocktails, things like that. And you know what? They're not. They're not doing that. And if they were to, okay, enjoy your bitter juice box. Like, I mean, that's basically what it is. It's not going to have an effect on them altering their state of mind. It's not going to make them feel drunk or anything. It's just a different type of drink to have. And so I guess that's why I don't really see it as a gateway drug, quote unquote. I have not found research from any other state, and we did look, trying to see if there's been kind of a gateway drug effect for youth. We have not found any evidence of that. And I also would argue that just common sense shows that there probably won't be much evidence of that. One thing I would say, I think it was Senator Storm asked the question about, does the can look just like a regular can of beer? It could. It could look a lot like a regular can of beer, but two things. If you look at craft brews in particular, you go look down a refrigerated aisle at all the different types of craft brews there are, a lot of those look like soda. A lot of those look like all kinds of beverages now, energy drinks, things like that, and they do have alcohol. So one thing I think we have to keep in mind is that non-alcoholic beverages must be clearly labeled as such. It can't say it's beer. It has to be labeled as non-alcoholic, which it is. One other response, talking about IDing kids to buy this kind of stuff. Once again, right now, we don't ID kids to buy non-alcoholic spirits or wine or anything like that. And I don't think there's anywhere that really does that. There was a piece in JAMA Pediatrics, which is a Journal of American Medical, it's a medical journal, pediatrics. And they surveyed all the states, and they found that 39 states don't have any statewide policy that limit the sale of non-alcoholic beverages. And the states that do are really inconsistent. So, for example, in Michigan, they restrict the sale of non-alcoholic beverages to 18 and up, but they don't, of non-alcoholic beer, but they don't restrict the sale of wine and liquor that's non-alcoholic. So there's these really inconsistent enforcement mechanisms. That's just Michigan. Individual retailers can choose to ID if they want to. And also, if we pass LB33, if we do advance this bill, local jurisdictions, city councils, village boards, are still free to pass their own requirements on age verification if they want to. Finally, if we deregulate this product at the state level, speaking to the gentleman who testified in opposition about how they tested a lot of types of non-alcoholic beer and they had more alcohol by volume than was advertised. Producers are still subject to federal standards on that stuff, and those come from the FDA and the FAA and the ATT, and product manufacturers make errors in every industry, and that's up to the feds to handle, and that's not really our purview in the legislature, I guess, or it's not what this bill seeks to do. I really love the increasing culture of sobriety that I'm seeing in our society. I like that it's becoming destigmatized to not drink. When I was in my early 20s, I'm not the oldest person in the room or anything. I know there's people with much more experience than I have, but it wasn't that long ago when I was in my 20s, and it was kind of dorky not to drink. Like, you can get kind of teased, like if you're out with your friends and you just get a Sprite, or you just get, club soda or something. Someone's going to make a little comment. And I see that happening almost never now. Among younger generations, among my generation, it's becoming much more acceptable and less stigmatized to just not consume alcohol, and I think that's really cool and really important. And I love hearing that there are 4 dry bars now in Nebraska. We have a great one in Omaha, and I think that this is just a common sense measure that we can take in Nebraska to support people who want to choose sobriety, who are curious about making healthier choices, and also a way to support small businesses that are producing non-alcoholic beer and selling it. So happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you, Senator Hunt. Are there any final questions for Senator Hunt? Yes, Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Hunt, for being here. We've discussed some significant potential downsides to this action. And I'm a firm believer that just because the legislature can take action doesn't mean it should take action. So in light of the potential downsides to this, what would you say is the most compelling purpose to actually pass this bill?
I think the most compelling reason to pass the bill is that we are regulating a non-alcoholic product like an alcoholic product. And it's inconsistent. You can already buy cocktails and wine. We don't regulate that. And we should put beer in the same category.
Even though it does provide some safeguards as it is right now.
Say that again?
So even though right now it does provide some safeguards the way it's regulated.
I actually disagree that it provides safeguards. So that's just not a premise that I'm really agreeing with.
Any other questions from the committee? Thank you very much, Senator
Thank you,
Hunt.
sir. Thanks, everybody.
That closes the hearing on LB33.